Bienvenidos, damas y caballeros. In this video, we're going to learn about the present tense subjunctive form in Spanish, and we'll be doing that in three different ways. First, we're going to learn about the vowel swap between the indicative and subjunctive form by looking at a grammar table. Second, we'll look at a couple examples to understand the context in which we use an indicative versus a subjunctive verb. And lastly, we'll be playing a little game to test your knowledge of the present tense subjunctive. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the vowel swap by taking a look at this grammar table. So we have the three different types of verbs that you see in Spanish that you're already familiar with. So the examples we see are amar, which stands in for the AR verbs, comer, which stands in for the ER verbs, and vivir, which stands in for the IR verbs. Now the indicative verb conjugations are in the red. So if you look at amar, in the red, you see that it reads as yo amo, tú amas, él ama, nosotros amamos, vosotros amáis, y ustedes aman. The same is true. So the vowel there, the A for the AR verbs, remains the same. If you look at the ER verb, comer, the E vowels are retained, and for vivir, the E vowels are used as well instead of the I, with one exception being nosotros, vivimos. Now, there is an exception that's common to all three of these type of verbs. The first person singular, yo, has the vowel O. Yo amo, yo como, yo vivo, but that's consistent throughout the verbs, and so it doesn't throw us off too much. Now, this is review. You already know this at this point. Now, when you use the present tense subjunctive, you swap the verb at the end. So the subjunctive is represented in the blue. So if you look back at amar, even the O gets swapped with an E. And for tú amas, you replace the A with an E. For él ama, you replace the A with the E. And the same is true throughout. That's all it is. It's a simple vowel swap, but the overall conjugation is the same, right? There's a S for tú, there's a MOS for nosotros, and so on. So that's pretty straightforward, right? It's just a simple vowel swap at the end of the word. The same is true for verbs that end with ER. Comer being the example here. O becomes A, ES becomes AS, E and el como becomes A and el coma, and so on. Vivir, again, it's the same vowel swap. We swap the O and yo vivo to an A. The E's become A's, and even the I becomes an A as well. So the exception doesn't carry over. It's just a full-fledged vowel swap to the A's. And that's basically it, right? So what I want to point out here is that this verb, this verb swap rule has no exceptions. There's really two things you have to keep in mind here. Verbs that end in AR, you swap the A with an E. Verbs that end in ER or IR, which even in the IR case, use the vowel, ending vowel E, you just swap that E with an A. Now you might be thinking, what about irregular verbs? There's always exceptions. Is there an exception to this rule? Well, the answer is no. No, there isn't an exception to this rule. So take a look at the irregular verb tener. As you know, that's an irregular verb. Even in the subjunctive case, you do add a G, but the ending vowel is still a swap between an E and an A. The ending vowel rule stays the same. What may or may not change, depending on if it's a regular or irregular verb, is a change in the stem of the word. But the conjugation between indicative and subjunctive doesn't touch the stem. It touches the ending vowel, right? And so you can rely on this rule 100% of the time. Easy peasy. All right. Next, let's take a look at the context in which you would use the indicative mood versus the subjunctive mood. Now, the indicative mood you already know about. The indicative mood, I hope you've noticed, is used to communicate facts or things we believe to be true with certainty. The example down here is, Él viene a visitarme mañana. Tomorrow, he comes to visit me. That expresses a fact and certainty. Yes, he'll be here tomorrow to visit me. Okay, there's no ambiguity there, no vagueness there. But if you go to the subjunctive mood, you see that it's used to convey wishes, doubts, suggestions, or feelings towards an action. This is a little more abstract. It's more abstract than a fact. This is where Spanish gets really interesting because we have emotions, we have doubts, we have suggestions. These are all relatively complex things to communicate. So the example here about our friend coming tomorrow to visit us becomes espero. Espero que él venga a visitarme mañana, which translates to I hope. I hope he comes to visit me tomorrow. That's very different from tomorrow he comes to visit. It becomes I hope he comes to visit tomorrow. You're expressing a wish, you're expressing a hope, you're expressing uncertainty because he may or may not come tomorrow, but you certainly hope that that is that certainly is a desired outcome. So this is you could think of this as the rules for context in applying the subjunctive mood. All right, so now what we're going to do is move on to the final part of the video. And here we're going to take a look at 5 different examples of verb conjugations between the indicative and the subjunctive. So what I want you to do here is read through these 2 sentences, and then I want you to think back to what we learned in the context section of the video. Why is the indicative being used? Why is the subjunctive being used? Remember, indicative communicates facts or things we believe to be true. The subjunctive mood conveys wishes, doubts, suggestions, or feelings, emotions towards an action. These are the rules of context that you need to keep in mind. So let's do the first one together. In the indicative sentence, it reads, Ella come pizza todos los viernes. The subjunctive reads as, Quiero que ella coma pizza conmigo mañana. The reason why the indicative verb conjugation of comer was used here is because we're expressing a simple fact. Ella come pizza todos los viernes. She eats pizza every single Friday. Simple. It's a fact. There's certainty in that statement. So you use the indicative conjugation, which is the E, the original vowel at the end of the word comer. The subjunctive, it says, Quiero que ella coma pizza conmigo mañana. I want that she eats pizza with me tomorrow. That's a desire. When you use the word quiero, that's a big, not a red flag, but that's a trigger word for the use of the subjunctive. Quiero, I want. I want is a desire. I want pizza. I want a new job. I want to dance. That's a desire, right? And so because of that, we're going to use the vowel swap. We're going to swap the E for an A, and now, congratulations, we have used the subjunctive in a sentence. Quiero que ella coma pizza conmigo mañana. And this isn't part of the video here, but as a bonus, take a look at the syntactical structure of a subjunctive sentence. You have the first subject plus the trigger word que plus the second subject followed by a subjunctive verb conjugation. This is a very common syntactical structure when using the subjunctive. You're going to notice that there's 2 subjects, the first person and then the second person followed by a verb. It's a very common syntactical structure, but let's focus on the verb conjugations themselves. All right, so that's comer, to eat, right? So she eats pizza every Friday. It's a simple fact. I want her to eat pizza with me. That's a wish, not a fact. Great. So here is the next example. The next example is vivir. Go ahead and read this to yourself and justify to yourself why was the indicative used in the first sentence and why was the subjunctive conjugation used in the second subject. Feel free to revert back to the section where we discuss the context of using the indicative versus the subjunctive. Go ahead, write down your answer, think it through, and then we'll work through it together. All right, so let's work through this together. The indicative sentence is, nosotros vivimos en Los Ángeles. The subjunctive is, dudo que nosotros vivamos en Los Ángeles para siempre. The first sentence is expressing a simple fact. We live in Los Angeles. That's it. It's a simple fact. The subjunctive is saying, dudo que nosotros vivamos en Los Ángeles para siempre. I doubt that we live in Los Angeles forever. We live in Los Angeles now, but I doubt it that we'll be here forever. Doubt. Doubt, doubt, doubt. That's the trigger word here. The subjunctive is used to communicate doubt, as well as wishes or desires or emotions. So this was a trigger word. And then remember what I said about the syntactical trigger? First subject plus the first subject expresses a hope, a wish, a desire, an emotion, plus the trigger word que, plus the second subject, which is a group, nosotros, followed by a subjunctive verb conjugation. So here we see that the I, the second I, gets swapped with an A, right? And this is consistent with the verb swap at the end that we saw in the grammar table, right? So vivimos becomes vivamos. Great. Now, so great. So here, a statement of reality, a fact in the indicative case, and a doubt in the subjunctive case. So uncertainty. Doubt and uncertainty are synonymous. All right, so here's the next example. Estudiar, to study. Go ahead and read that. Pause the video, and then we'll work through it together. Estudiar. The indicative, tú estudias español cada día. Subjunctive, ojalá que tú estudies español en Argentina un día. The indicative is simply stating that a fact, again, a fact, you study Spanish every day. Yeah, it's true. It's a fact. It's a fact about me. The subjunctive says, ojalá que tú estudies español en Argentina un día. I hope. Ojalá means I hope. I hope. I hope or that you study Spanish in Argentina one day. When you express a hope, as we saw here, a hope, a wish, you need to use the subjunctive form. And that's why we do the verb swap at the end. We take that A and swap it with E. Just as we saw in the grammar table, we're just applying that simple rule again. Right? So first example was a fact. Second example was a hope, a wish. All right, so trabajar, you know the rules. Pause the video. Convince yourself you understand why the subjunctive was used instead of the indicative in the subjunctive sentence. All right, so the indicative sentence is, ellos trabajan en una oficina. They work in an office. Simple fact, as usual. Subjunctive, es posible que ellos trabajen desde casa mañana. Es posible. So the expression es posible que is expressing uncertainty, right? Because when you think about a possibility can be quantified as a probability. And the only reason why anyone ever uses the mathematics of probability is to quantify uncertainty. That's the whole purpose of probability, to quantify uncertainty. There's an 80%, I'm pretty sure it's going to rain today. There is an 85% chance it's going to rain today, but I'm not 100% sure. I have some doubt. And as we know, the subjunctive is used to express uncertainty and doubt. And so the phrase, es posible que, is the trigger phrase to let us know that the next verb should be conjugated in the subjunctive. And you do that by taking the last vowel A and swapping it with an E, right? So indicative, expressing a simple fact. Subjunctive, expressing uncertainty. All right, last example. Pause the video and you know what to do. Okay, the indicative reads, Yo voy al cine esta noche. The subjunctive reads, Tal vez yo vaya al cine mañana. The indicative, again, is expressing a simple fact. Yo voy al cine esta noche. I am going to the theater tonight. Simple. The subjunctive is saying, Tal vez yo vaya al cine mañana. Maybe I will go to the theater tomorrow. That sounds a lot to me like uncertainty. Whenever you use the word maybe, you're expressing uncertainty. And that's why now ir is a highly irregular verb. As you know, look up a grammar table for ir and you'll see that it's highly irregular. But even the A rule in the vowel swap stays the same. There is no E here, but for the subjunctive, you still add that A, right? So coming back to the table here, oh, it's VV, never mind. So yeah, so even though it's a highly irregular verb, you still add that A, right? So the rule of adding the A's for words that end in IR, or in this case, the word IR, ir, remains the same. This rule is consistent throughout. So that's why I included it here, because it is a highly irregular verb, but even then, you gotta add that A at the end to make it a present tense subjunctive verb conjugation. All right, that's it. That's the video. We just covered the present tense subjunctive mood in Spanish. We saw that there is a vowel swap rule for the ending vowel between an indicative and a subjunctive verb in the present tense. We saw the context in which we use the subjunctive. The indicative is used to express certainty and facts of which we know about, and the subjunctive is used to describe more abstract things. Wishes, emotions, suggestions, doubts, uncertainty, these sorts of things. And then lastly, we took a look at 5 different cases in which we saw the same verb used in 2 different cases, 2 different sentences, one in its indicative conjugation and another in its subjunctive conjugation. If you find this kind of content valuable, you know what to do. Most importantly, subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section. If you love what we're doing here, if you hate what you're doing here, please let me know about it, because it's not really love or hate that helps the channel grow, it's engagement. So, till next time, ciao, ciao.